Have you ever heard a story so magical, so full of wonder, that it stayed with you long after it ended? Maybe it was something your grandmother whispered at night, or a tale your uncle told during a family gathering under the stars. Stories like that are treasures, living, breathing pieces of who we are. But what happens when those stories disappear? What happens when we forget the voice of the past? In the heart of Ghana, a quiet war has been raging, not with guns or soldiers, but with silence. A war against forgetfulness. For years, thousands of traditional stories, folk legends, and wisdom passed from one generation to the next have been fading into the shadows. The elders who once carried these stories are growing older. Their voices, once loud and proud in village squares, are becoming whispers. And the younger ones? They're glued to screens, scrolling, watching, and living. In a world moving too fast to remember. But something remarkable is happening. Just when it seemed like the last echo of the old stories might vanish, Ghana stood up and said, "Not on our watch." Over 5,000 tales, yes, 5,000, are being brought back to life. Tales of Ananse the Spider, of mighty rivers that talk, of talking drums and shape-shifting creatures that lived in the forest. These aren't just bedtime stories, they're roots. They're mirrors showing us who we were and guiding us toward who we can be. Now you might wonder, why do these stories matter so much? That's a fair question. You see, stories are more than just fun. They carry values, they carry memories, they teach without sounding like school. In many villages, stories were the first classrooms. Elders used them to explain bravery, kindness, honesty, and even danger. A child who knew the story of the greedy hunter would think twice before being selfish. That's how wisdom was passed. Not through textbooks, but through tales. One of the most powerful things about Ghana's revival of these stories is how they're being told. It's not just in dusty books or old libraries. Young people are getting involved. School clubs are acting out the stories. Artists are painting scenes from them. Musicians are turning them into songs. Even social media is buzzing with storytellers giving old tales a fresh voice. Can you believe that? Stories that once echoed through forests are now being liked, shared, and commented on around the world. At the center of this movement are the elders, the last living storytellers. Men and women who remember tales told by moonlight and dances under the stars. Many of them never thought their stories would matter again. Some even wept when young. People asked them to teach. They said it felt like waking up after a long dream, to find someone still waiting for their voice. And when they began to speak, the stories flowed, like rivers released from a dam. This revival is also giving birth to something even more beautiful: connection. Children who once laughed at the old ways are now proud. Parents who once brushed off folktales are now sitting with their kids asking, "Did I ever tell you about Ananse and the magic pot?" And suddenly, dinner tables become storytelling circles. Phones are turned off. Eyes meet, hearts open. The government of Ghana has even stepped in, helping fund community centers where stories are recorded, translated, and archived. Imagine that. An entire building filled with the voices of the past, captured for the future. They call it the House of Tales. And it's filled with laughter, music, and sometimes even tears. Because some stories are funny, sure, but others, they're deep. They speak of lost love, of war, of heroes who gave everything for their people. One of the most heartwarming moments in this journey came from a small fishing town near Cape Coast. There, a young boy named Kojo listened to his grandfather tell a tale about a singing crab who saved an entire village from a tidal wave. Kojo was so inspired that he went home, grabbed a pencil, and started drawing the scenes from the story. A week later, his sketches were turned into a comic book that the whole school read. His teacher said it sparked more interest in reading than any textbook ever had. That's the magic of stories. They make you feel something, and that feeling is spreading. In Accra, teenagers are gathering in cafes to hold storytelling nights. They dress up as characters, act out old tales with modern twists, and even bring drums and flutes to set the mood. These events, once thought of as old people things, are now cool again. That's right, cool. Because people are realizing that traditional stories aren't just about the past. They're full of life lessons, laughter, drama, and even suspense. Who doesn't love a good cliffhanger? Digital tools are also playing a big role. With just a phone and a mic, young creators are recording elders and uploading their stories to YouTube and podcast platforms. Some channels have thousands of subscribers already. They add colorful animations, subtitles in local dialects, and even sound effects like chirping birds or thunder to bring each story alive. What was once locked in memory is now just a click away. And guess what? Even Ghanaians living abroad are tuning in. One lady in London said she cried hearing a tale her late mother used to tell, something she hadn't heard in 20 years. What's also amazing is that this movement is not just about saving the old stories, but also giving space to new ones. Yes, kids today are writing their own folk tales, stories inspired by tradition, but shaped by modern life. One girl wrote about a magical trotro, that's a minibus in Ghana, that helps people solve their problems by playing music that speaks to their hearts. Another boy created a superhero based on the Ashanti golden stool, who fights injustice with wisdom, not fists. These young minds are proving that folklore isn't stuck in the past. It can grow, evolve, and shine in new ways. Even schools are changing how they teach history and language. Instead of only focusing on colonial timelines and grammar rules, teachers are mixing in tales from different regions. You, Fante, Dagomba, Akan. It brings the classroom alive. Students start to see their own families, their own roots in the lessons. A girl from the north said that hearing a story her grandmother told in class made her feel seen for the first time. That's the power of representation. When your voice is in the story, you know you matter. Some of these stories are also helping solve real-world problems. One folktale, shared in the Volta region, teaches about protecting the river spirits and not polluting the water. When shared with children during a cleanup project, it made them care more than any lecture could. Another story from the savannah teaches about wildfires and why setting careless bushfires can anger the spirits of the land. These aren't just legends, they're tools. They help communities pass on wisdom in a way that sticks. And you know what else is happening? People are beginning to document not just the stories, but the storytellers themselves, their facial expressions, their gestures, their pauses, even their laughter. Everything is being recorded. It's not just the words that matter, but the way they're told. These are performances, filled with rhythm and emotion. Some even say listening to an elder tell a story is like watching a movie with your eyes closed. You see everything with your mind. All this energy has sparked festivals, too. The Night of 1,000 Tales is one of the biggest. People come from all over, villages, cities, other countries, to sit under the stars and listen. There's food, music, and story circles lit by lanterns. You'll hear laughter, gasps, even tears. And when the night ends, nobody wants to leave. They say it feels like time travel, like they've touched something ancient and beautiful that they didn't even know they were missing. That's the thing. So many elders are waiting for someone to sit down, listen, and say, "Tell me a story." Not because they want fame, not because they expect applause, but because the stories are alive inside them. And like all living things, stories need to breathe. They need ears to land in, hearts to grow in. And when someone finally listens, it's like planting a seed, one that can bloom for generations. And that seed? It's already growing. In towns and cities, in schools and festivals, in libraries and on phones, Ghana's stories are sprouting like wildflowers after a rainstorm. Old ones are being recorded, new ones are being written. And people who thought they had nothing in common are discovering shared tales from distant corners of the country. It's like each story is a thread, and now all those threads are being woven into something strong, something bright. A tapestry of memory and identity. Sometimes it's not even the full story that matters. Sometimes it's just a phrase, a proverb, a saying passed down from a grandparent. A crab does not give birth to a bird. Even the smallest drum can echo across the hills. These sayings are like sparks. They light something up inside us. They remind us that wisdom doesn't always shout. It often whispers. And for many people, that whisper is what brings comfort. In tough times, when life feels confusing or unfair, the old stories offer answers. Not always easy ones, but honest ones. They teach that the trickster doesn't always win, that the proud can fall. That kindness often carries the day. They teach that even if the road is long, the journey is worth it, and that no one is ever truly alone, not when you carry the stories of your ancestors with you. So now, the big question is, where does this go from here? If Ghana has revived over 5,000 stories, what comes next? The answer is simple: more. More listening, more sharing, more young people picking up the torch. Because this isn't just a one-time thing. It's a movement, a wave of memory sweeping across the country, reaching Ghanaians abroad, inspiring Africans everywhere, and showing the world that tradition is not something to hide. It's something to celebrate. And honestly, that's the biggest victory in this war on forgetfulness. Not just the number of stories saved, but the joy in telling them again. The pride, the laughter, the tears, the silence after a powerful tale. The moment when someone leans in and says, "That reminds me of something my mother used to say." That's when you know the story isn't just being told, it's being lived. There's something beautiful about the idea that a story told hundreds of years ago in a quiet corner of Ghana can still reach someone today. Maybe that someone is a child in Accra, or a grandmother in Kumasi, or even a teenager sitting in a bedroom in Canada with headphones on. That's the thing about stories. They travel. They stretch across time and space, weaving invisible threads between us. Threads of understanding, of belonging, of wonder. And now, the world is watching. Documentaries are being filmed. UNESCO is recognizing Ghanaian oral traditions as a cultural treasure. Universities are offering scholarships for students who want to research, preserve, and retell these stories. It's as if the entire nation suddenly remembered that it has gold, not just in the ground, but in the hearts and memories of its people. Gold that can't be mined, but must be shared. Some of the most surprising voices in this movement are the ones who never thought they had anything to say. A shoe shiner in Ho started performing Ananse tales during breaks. A shy girl in Sunyani who stuttered found her voice through storytelling, and now leads her school's story club. A retired farmer recorded the history of his family, 6 generations deep, and gave a copy to every grandchild. These are everyday heroes, warriors in Ghana's war against forgetfulness. And what's amazing is that no one is too young or too old to join. A 5-year-old can tell a story with clay figures on the floor. A 90-year-old can recall a tale with eyes closed and smile wide. They're all part of the same chorus, a chorus that says, "We remember, we honor, we share." And in that sharing, they become teachers, bridges, keepers of memory. What Ghana has done is more than preserve tradition. It has reignited identity. It has reminded people, especially the youth, that their culture is not old and dusty. It's alive. It dances. It sings. It teaches. It laughs. And above all, it belongs to them. Not just as something to protect, but as something to play with, expand, remix, and pass on. And if you're watching this video right now, whether you're in Ghana or anywhere else, this is your invitation to be part of the story, too. Ask your parents or grandparents to tell you a story they remember. Write it down. Record it on your phone. draw it, share it. Don't let it fade, because every story saved is a spark. And the more sparks we collect, the brighter the fire becomes. So as we close this journey through Ghana's storytelling revival, let me leave you with this. The war on forgetfulness is not over. It's just beginning. But Ghana is winning. And not with armies or weapons, but with voices, with memories, with love. 5,000 stories may have been revived already, but who knows? Maybe yours will be the next. And if it is, tell it loud, tell it proud, and most of all, never let it be forgotten. If this story moved you, give it a like and hit that subscribe button for more inspiring journeys into Africa's cultural treasures. And tell us in the comments, what's one story from your family that you'll never forget? Let's keep this fire burning together. You are part of this legacy now.